Greetings. So this is going to be a Gorean video. And what I want to discuss today is basically misogyny and gore. Now I hear it claimed again and again and again, Goreans are misogynists. And I have to say I completely disagree. There is nothing within the Gorean philosophy that supports misogyny. Yes, is it a sexist? By the normal definition of sexist by today's society, is it a sexist philosophy? Yes. But sexism and misogyny isn't the same thing. Very often people think that sexism and misogyny basically are two words for the same thing. It isn't. Being sexist means that you have a different standard for men and women. It means that you might think that there are different roles in society for men and women, and that you prefer a more traditional, old-fashioned gender roles. And Goreans definitely do that. Misogyny, however, is hatred of women, and Goreans don't hate women. If you read the Gore books, it is filled with poetry about the beauty, grace, and basically it's filled with love for women. So basically, is it misogynistic? No. Now, the Gorean lifestyle is patriarchal, meaning that it follows traditional views on gender roles. Now, some are very strict on this, others are not. In my household, for example, we are not very strict on this, among other things because the way me and my three companions see it, war is about, basically it's about following your inner nature, and it's about the merits of each individual. You cannot have something based on merit if you're going to disqualify a lot of people from doing something just on the basis of their gender. We acknowledge that far fewer women than men want to be leaders, for example, want to have careers. And you think it is more natural for women to be the nurturers and the men to be the breadwinners. However, that doesn't mean that there aren't women who want to be the breadwinners, who want a more masculine role. And as long as they can do it as well as the men, as in they have the same merits as the men, why not? However, many Goreans have a very strict, this is the role for women, this is the role for men. And that is sexist, but it isn't misogynistic. Basically, the difference is this. I had a friend growing up who were from Bosnia. Charming young man, and we both liked playing computer games. So often we visited one another and played, and he was always the perfect gentleman. And when we ride our bikes home to my place, basically he was the next door neighbor to my grandparents, and I lived about, let's say, 10 minutes on a bike from there. But it was a pretty heavily trafficked road, at least by Norwegian standards. And while there was this little strip of area where you could walk or ride a bike, it was a pretty dangerous road, really. And my friend always insisted that I ride to the closest to the as far away from the cars as possible with him beside me, because if a car were to hit us, he said he wanted it to hit him and not me, because when we were together I was his responsibility because I was a girl and he was a boy. And many would say this is a sexist attitude, that he as a boy has to take responsibility for me, that he has to protect me, and so on. So, and can it be seen as sexist? Yes, but it's definitely not misogynistic. He doesn't hate me. This kid was willing to give his life to protect mine, because for him the loss of honor if I would have gotten hurt while he was with me was worse than death. And that is in a way very Gorean attitude. And so no, in the Gorean basically in the philosophy, the philosophy isn't misogynistic. Now, are misogynistic parts in the books, because basically the Gore books were written as John Norman's escapic fantasy, because he was frustrated with feminism, which means you have scenes like the one in Dancer, where they have captured the main character there and she's been brought to Gore and find herself in a collar and being trained. And then there's a Gorean man that stands there saying, "You kill men!" And how does she kill men? Well, she's a librarian, so she works and fends for herself and isn't dependent on a man. You will find shit like this in the Gore books. Basically, first of all, that's wrong in so many levels, and this is basically what ties into what I will make another video about, in that you have to use your brain when reading the Gore books, because while there's a lot of good philosophy there, the books is at odds with itself at times, because at one end it speaks about individual responsibility for your own actions, it speaks about developing yourself, it speaks about being a man or a woman, being free, and with all that entails. And then it says, no, a woman has all the power in the world, because if she doesn't choose to submit, if she decides to work and be a librarian, she kills masculinity. Because, of course, a man can't be masculine unless a woman is willing to bend down to him. I mean, my free companion, masculinity, is not based on whatever or not I work, or whatever or not I submit to him or not. He's a man by his own right, or he wouldn't be a man at all. But stay on topic. Basically, you will find misogynistic parts in the books, but for the most part it speaks very highly of women, but the book speaks about different roles for women and men, and that it's natural, that these differences are natural, and that when you deny them in society like we do today, it creates imbalances within us. Like, let me take a real life example. They did a research study not long ago among engineer students and figured that of them only 20% of the female students wanted to become leaders. The other girls wanted to learn their craft, be good at it, and but they said they didn't want the responsibility of leadership position, or they felt that being leaders would be difficult in combining with family, and so on. They wanted to practice their craft, but they didn't want to be leaders. However, with the boys, 80% of the boys wanted to become leaders. And they wanted to be good at their craft, but they wanted to be leaders. And only 20% of them said that they didn't want that, or that the responsibility of that were too much, or that they wanted to focus on family instead. That's natural. However, what does the Norwegian government do? Well, as we need to use a lot of resources to find a way to motivate girls to become leaders, because we definitely need to have 50 in all leadership positions. That's what Gore is fighting against. Basically, the idea that we are all equal, that the only difference between a woman and a man is where she has bumps. That we are just the same. I have boobs, my free companion has a dick. Other than that, we are completely the same, and to that I call bullshit. Now, of course, there are girls who are more masculine and men who are more feminine, and I think that even as Goreans, we should accept this. Not everybody is the same, and the Gore books are very narrow. They have a very, all women are like this, all men are like that. And I don't agree with that. However, the basic concept is that it's more natural for women to be submissive and more natural for men to be dominant. And you see that in almost every mammal. You have a few examples such as elephants, but in almost every mammal the females are submissive and the males are dominant. It's yin and yang, the active, the passive, and so on, and therefore it fits together. And that when we are all supposed to be the same, it creates a lot of conflict within us. It's like, that's one of the reasons why I fell for the Gorean lifestyle, because I've always been a Tom girl. I like a lot of things that boys like. I like computer games, I'm geekish, I like fantasy and science fiction, and I don't really use makeup, and while I do like jewelry, I have to admit that I'm not a very girly girl. However, the Gore books sort of inspired me to be feminine and accept being feminine, and that there's a difference between women and men. And basically, the Gorean lifestyle encourages women to be feminine and men to be masculine. And that's not being misogynistic. Is it sexist? Yeah, by today's standards it is sexist. Within the Gorean lifestyle, a woman is submissive. Does that mean that every woman is a slave? No. But it does expect that within a free companionship, the woman obeys the man. It more akin to a 1950s marriage. And it does believe that slavery is the ultimate show of of femininity. And that can be seen as sexist, but it isn't misogynistic. Now, will you meet misogynists within the Gorean lifestyle? Oh, hell yes! Because there are quite a few very weak men who are very afraid of women, who see something like the Gorean lifestyle and think, oh, great! I don't have to deal with women here. I can just say, look, bitch, I have a penis, obey me. And especially when you identify as a free woman, you will meet quite a few of these. Like, I remember at one time I corrected a slave who were treating, who basically had the typical, but my master say that I'm only gonna call him master. And I said, nobody can force you here, but you will then receive negative feedback among Goreans, and many will look at your master as weak for allowing you to behave this way, which is seen as disrespectful to the free. And then of course one of the men comes in and say, "Oh, look at the free woman talk. Slave is so much more worth than a free woman, and besides, no woman is truly free, yada yada yada." And then he proceeds to threaten to rape me, where I basically told him, you may come to my door. You may first try to get past my free companion. Then you'll have to get past me, if you can manage that. I'm your prize. Well, he hasn't showed up yet. Anyway, you'll meet people like that. And it is difficult at times to be taken seriously as a free woman. Because there's a lot of men within the Gorean community who think that as long as they identify as free and they have a dick, then everybody who doesn't have a dick should obey them. It's very easy peasy like that. And they'll get very frustrated when they meet a woman who says no. And here's the crux of it. I will obey a man that I recognizes as a free man. However, and I'm gonna make a video about this eventually too, as a free person, I obey with responsibility, meaning that my obedience goes only as far as I, with my free will, deem it reasonable. And that means that when someone do not act in a manner that I consider to be proper for a free Gorean man, I feel no obligation to obey or show that person any more respect than I would anybody else I meet. Basically, so yeah, you'll meet misogynists within the Gorean lifestyle. It's like this, you'll meet a lot of people who just want to have authority in, for example, jobs like parking ticket controllers. I don't know what job title that job title is called in English. Security guards, all of that. There is a greater number of people who want to boss people around, who are then drawn to professions where they can do that. But that doesn't mean that everyone who has such a profession are that kind of person. Just that in a patriarchal lifestyle, naturally there are quite a few misogynists who will be drawn to that lifestyle. And being a free woman within the Gorean lifestyle means you have to have somewhat thick skin, because you will be called every name in the book, because there's a lot of people who they have memorized all the quotes when it comes to slaves, but quotes like, "On Gore there's no person more respected or more valued than the free woman," passages on how free man rises when a free woman comes into the room, all basically the positive quotes about free women gone from their minds. It's only slaves, 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 slaves. Look, I have a penis, I can control you. And I call that being weak. So yeah, will you find weak misogynistic men within the Gorean lifestyle? Yes. Does that mean that the lifestyle in general are misogynistic? No. Does that mean that the philosophies encourages misogyny? No. Is it a sexist lifestyle? Yes, by modern Western terms, the Gorean lifestyle is sexist, but to my opinion that it's good. Because I believe in equal opportunity. I believe that you cannot have a meritocracy, and I believe that the most ideal way to run a society is to have a meritocracy, that people are basically chosen by their merits. You cannot have a meritocracy if you say your merits doesn't count, your boobs. However, at the same time, within a meritocracy, you can't lift one group up where it isn't natural for them. So while there will be women who are great leaders, and you have had examples of that in history, most women don't want that. And I think that by saying you have to be equal, you have to be exactly the same as the man, you have to have the exact same role as men, that lessens us all. I am not a man, and I'm proud of being a woman. And I'm proud of not wanting to be equal to a man. But is that sexism? Yeah, it is. However, that doesn't mean it's misogyny. So yeah, I think that sort of sums up my opinions on it. Yes, there are misogynists within the Gorean lifestyle, but I think they have then misunderstood the philosophy, because that doesn't advocate misogyny. It advocates accepting the natural differences between women and men, and accepting a patriarchal order of nature where the men are more dominant than the women, and not trying to artificially change that. So yeah, have a great day and be well.